And we're live. I'll give it a couple seconds to start up. Jeez, I'm getting pretty shaggy. This quarantine is making it hard for haircuts, huh? I'm gonna have to probably do something pretty drastic pretty soon. We'll see. So you might tune in one day and George is bald because he had to shave his head because I do not have the skills for a haircut. Welcome everybody to today, Wednesday. Let's say it's the 15th, but it's probably not. The installment of Geek Speaks Greek. My name is George O'Connor. I am the author and illustrator behind the series Olympians, which retells classic Greek myth in graphic novel form. Today we are going to, so I've been doing these graphic novels. There's currently 11 out. I'm working on book 12, Dionysus. Literally just took a break from working on it about an hour ago. Wrapping up the series, The 12 Great Gods, right, with a few other additions. And I realized that there's a few deities I never quite got around to presenting in Olympians. For whatever reason, they didn't fit into the narrative, or they were just kind of too weird or obscure, or just simple oversight. Just because, even though 12 books is a lot, there's so much Greek mythology, you can't fit it all in there. So on Monday of this week, we turned our attention to the first of those goddesses that I never got a chance to put in, Nemesis, the Greek goddess of vengeance. Because I'd never actually put her in the book, I kind of talked about her and actually designed the way she looks live as people were watching. And that came out pretty well, I think. So we're going to be doing that again today with the mother of Nemesis, Nyx. Before we get to that, though, I have a couple things. I want to share some of the art that people sent in, and I left my iPad right across here, and I have to go out of camera just for a second to get it. Additionally, on Friday of last week, I did an episode about Asterion, the Minotaur, and that disappeared from my phone. I didn't successfully save it. If for some weird chance anybody saved that, please let me know, because I would love to put up on my YouTube channel. In fact, let me go get these signs. In case you didn't realize, this is another George flying solo day, so I'm all sorts of disorganized. My cats are undoubtedly they're on the kitchen table now, just walking across Dionysus, causing trouble. If it turns out that you do, in fact, have that Lost Minotaur episode, please email me at georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com, and we'll figure out some way for you to get that to me. I'll give you a Dropbox link or something. And then all of my videos, with the exception of the Minotaur, actually, and the exception of the first two, the Hermes/Pan and the Apollo/Asclepius episodes, also lost, you can find on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/user/George Olympians. I don't think I'm going to find... There's a small chance we might find that Minotaur episode. I feel like the Hermes and Apollo episodes are lost to the sands of time. So I'm probably going to have to do a week coming up that's just a do-over week where I hit these characters I already did. I'm not sure. Before we get into designing Nyx, which sounds like a kind of weird TV series, I want to share some of the artwork that people have shared with me. So on Monday, as I mentioned, we designed Nyx. Nemesis. Oh, it's going to be hard, those two end names. And so, some of you sent your own versions of Nemesis in. Some of these take your own cues. Some of you are actually working with the ideas that I established. Almost all of you took it in your own directions, which is super cool. This is from Eleanor. She's age 5. This is her version of Nemesis. She has the black bat wings we talked about. I really like the purple hair. And the color of the dress is pretty cool, too. I had suggested maybe a blue, but I wasn't being very creative. I like the brown. That works a lot. It kind of looks like dried blood, to be a little gory. So way to go, Eleanor. That's a great picture. Here are 2 pictures by Elia. Here is her version of... Oh, it came sideways. This is going to be the trick. We're going to have to see a sideways Nemesis. There she is with her black wings, her blue dress. She's holding the scale. In the other hand, she's got it's hard to see, a curled up whip. That's a great drawing, Elia. And there was another one from her. I'm not gonna be able to. I'm gonna show this one later because it's got a caption. It's funny. I'm gonna have to. But it's turning around my thing. I'm gonna have to fix that later. But Elia, great job. You're a very talented artist. This one is from the brother-sister art team of Nora and Drake. We've heard from them before. First up here is Nora's. There we have... This is actually... I really like this Nemesis. She's a little bit like... I mean... you know what? I kind of wish I'd come up with this idea that Nemesis, like, she's got the black scourge, she's got the black wings, her hair is snaking out in tendrils, but she's wearing kind of like a nice pink summer dress. And I kind of like that. Like, revenge comes in this way you don't expect. Like, she's like, oh, Nemesis, you look so nice today and so relaxed. She's like, oh, I'm always relaxed when I'm meting out harsh justice. And you can see her, she's actually yelling, you! And there's a lineup of figures on the bottom. One of them is raising her hand. Everybody seems very happy to be singled out by Nemesis. I'm not sure what the story is there. And one guy's laughing. Oh, I bet you it's like a school setting thing. And the one person who's laughing knows who is the cheater because he's got mean eyebrows. And this is Nemesis by Nora's brother Drake. I love, again, we have the scourge going up in the air, the black wings. Man, talented family there. You guys do some great work. Just a few more drawings, and then we'll start today's lesson. Oh, here's a cool one. This is from Joseph. Now, Joseph has a great sense of design here, too, right? Because Joseph drew, like, the face. Because the first thing, if you remember, I did this in several sketches. I started drawing a face first, so he kind of, like, just went with the face. But then he, like, circled it with, like, the scourge. And I seem to remember other works from Joseph having this strong symbol-making quality. So Joseph's probably going to be, like, a very talented graphic designer or, like, textile designer or something one day. He's very good at making, like, symbols. And that's pretty great. Joseph is 8 years old. Way to go, Joseph. And now this is a little bit of a departure. This is something from a super fan of mine, somebody who's been writing me for a long time, even before I was doing these videos, named Megan. And Megan is, as it turns out, is a really phenomenal artist. What I should also mention about Megan is Megan she's a fan of the Olympians, like I said, and she strongly ships Athena and Hermes together. In her mind, those two would make a perfect couple. She's not alone in this. I remember us talking about this in other episodes, and particularly in the Great Lost Hermes episode, there was a lot of talk of, like, don't you think they'd be a good couple? And I was kind of the opinion, I think, like, he's a little immature for her, she gets sick of him, but they definitely do seem to get along well. So here is a drawing Megan did of the happy couple of Hermes and Athena, and this is their children of her own design in front, who have different elements of them. How great are these drawings? And there's, like, a strong similarity, like, she's clearly, like, you know, for, like, Athena and Hermes, she's clearly using designs based on mine. But then look at, like, these great, like, I love, especially, I wish I had their names offhand, I should have taken some notes. I especially love the one that's wearing Hermes' helmet. So here's some close-ups of some of them. Here is one of the daughters playing music. Here is... This is my favorite drawing of all. I'll just be honest. Like, this is, like, sleeping daughter of Hermes. So it's kind of like a lady Hermes, but, like look at the sheep, and, like, they're going into the field. They're all passed out. Like, that outfit, that whole thing really works well this way. So, like, I'm like, wow, way to go, Megan. These are amazing drawings. Oh, I already showed that one. I have a few here of hers, so... Oh, this one's nice. This is Mama Athena being very protective of her children. There's the one, I wish I knew their names. There's the one who's playing music, kind of being cuddled. There's the one who's taking after Hermes. And then there's this defiant young one. I love that look on their face. So these are great. And there's one more to share, because this is like Athena meets Ares, like the combination of the two, right? Look at the way, I think this is one of the children of Hermes and Athena, where, like, the eyes are hidden, but, like, the way the eyes are glowing, it's very reminiscent of the way Ares does. So this is kind of like, in my mind, this is the ultimate, like, war god. It's like the combination of the two. Megan has done zillions of drawings. I'm hoping that she has some place that maybe she could put them up where we could see all of these. They're on her Facebook right now. I don't have her permission to give out her Facebook, but hopefully she'll share some more things with her. Megan, amazing work. So, today we're going to talk about Nyx or Neeks or however you want to pronounce it. I'm going to switch back and forth. I couldn't decide. I've heard both pronunciations. I feel like Neeks is probably a little bit closer to the original Greek, but I think Nyx sounds cooler, so I'm probably going to lean into Nyx a little bit. Nyx is, very simply put, the goddess of night. Now, in one of our earlier episodes, we actually talked about Uranos, the goddess of the sky. And we tried to talk about what does he look like. And in my books, The Olympians, I kind of decide on Uranos is the sky, but he seems to be a depiction of the nighttime sky. So he's not super personified. He's kind of just this black shape with stars in him. But then where does that put Nyx, right? Because there's a lot of overlap here. So right off the bat, I'm kind of just from a design sensibility, because I'm going to be here designing Nyx for the first time with you. Nyx has not, to this point, her only appearance in Olympians, the graphic novel, has been as mentions. Specifically, she's been mentioned as the mother of one of my personal favorite goddesses, I think officially on the record as my favorite minor god / goddess, Eris, the goddess of causing trouble, is a child of Nyx. Kind of a lesser child, and I'll get to that later when I talk about Nyx's other offspring. Because where does Nyx come from? One of the things that is so cool about the gods and the Olympians and all this stuff is the way everything kind of fits together. One of the most popular features of my books is the family tree. People really love to see how all the gods are related and the interrelationships and who's related to who and who marries who and stuff. And we always joke, it almost all comes back to Zeus, right? That's not true. There's other generations, but it all comes back to Gaia and Uranos. I often say Gaia is the first goddess. And that's true if you don't count chaos. Chaos is first, wherever chaos is, a big white void. From out of chaos is birthed Gaia. And then Gaia creates Uranos, then she creates the Titans and the Hecatonchires, Cyclopes, down the line. But that wasn't the only goddess or god or thing created out of chaos. Because right after Gaia is created, so is Nyx. So Nyx is actually kind of the sister of Gaia. Which is mind-blowing. It's wait, what? Yeah, she represents an entire other family tree that just goes down with a lot of other beings that come from it. And it's kind of interesting. There's some other siblings that are accorded to this just coming from chaos. There's Erebus, whose name I think translates just as darkness. And sometimes he's actually just considered part of Tartarus. Sometimes Tartarus himself is considered part of this. Sometimes he's not just a place. Those ones are a little bit weirder. I didn't really touch them in Olympians because I feel like they're so nebulous and so ill-defined as to be arguably not actually deities. But there is another one that has featured rather prominently in Olympians that is a sibling to both Nyx and Gaia. And that's Eros. And there's been two Eroses. We're not talking flyer and diaper baby Eros here, son of Aphrodite. We're talking the Eros, the power of love, the generative power of love, the creation of desire to create life. The original Eros, that Eros, Cupid, boing, is named after. That was also one of the siblings. These gods, they're kind of like the primordial gods. And for the most part, it's pretty hard to personify them. For one reason, there was no people, so they wouldn't have taken human form. Gaia, in the books, I personify her pretty much exclusively as the Earth. In fact, entirely exclusively. She's just the Earth. We're all standing on Gaia. I mean, I'm in the second floor of a building right now, but the building I'm standing on is standing on Gaia. Eros, I don't know that even though Eros makes some quote-unquote appearances on camera in the series, I don't think I even draw Eros. Eros is like an invisible force that just makes... It's the creation of love and the desire to create new life. A force that's in the universe. And then Nyx, well, Nyx is night, which brings us back to the idea. I feel pretty strongly Nyx isn't going to be personified. Nyx not going to have human forms. Nyx. It sounds like I'm talking about some guy named Nick. Nick. So, because the other siblings aren't. Now, that would make for a boring drawing. Imagine that was I got super fat markers today. I have multiple, because we're doing night. We're going to be using a lot of black. But imagine, I just really stick to that non-personified idea. And I just spend the entire time coloring this in. And if you guys smelled these things, why did I just do that? They stink. I would pass out. You'd be watching me color this thing in for 5 minutes. I'd hit the floor, and then it would just be empty screen for 20 minutes. I hope he's okay. So we're not going to stick completely just to Nyx being just a black shape, because that would just be very boring. But she is light. No, she's not light. She's the complete absence of light. She's night. I spoke the word wrong. So the difference between her and Uranus, again, she's of a generation before Uranus. Uranus, who is the closest visual thing I could think of this, who is the night sky, there have been, I think to date, 2 panels in Olympians where I kind of vaguely hinted at him having a form other than being the sky. There's one panel in Zeus where you see his hand kind of coming over Mother Earth. And actually, you know what? I just realized the other panel is in a book you haven't seen yet. It's a Dionysus. It's one of the first few pages. You see him vaguely take on a shape. So I feel like we're going to have to play with that, where there's going to be Nyx, where she has a little bit of a shape. Here's the difference, a big difference. She's not going to have stars. She's not the nighttime sky. She is night. As near as I could tell in my readings about her, she is the absolute absence of light. So that includes stars. They make a great mention in Hesiod that he's set with just jewels like the stars. There's no mention of that. So Hesiod, I've mentioned Hesiod before, early Greek writer. He's a contemporary of Homer. Both of the two of them actually mention Nyx. Hesiod gives us the most information. Hesiod mentions that she is like that sister to, the whole thing I explained. He never uses the term sister. They're careful not to personify them that way. But she is born out of chaos after Gaia, and she is a sibling, I guess, for lack of better terms. To use a human term to describe non-humans. She is a sibling to Erebus and to Eros and Tartarus, and I'm probably forgetting at least one. They're kind of not as interesting, these gods. I'll be honest. They don't have they're kind of real base concepts. And then, this is where it gets super interesting to me about Nyx. A lot of her children, and here's another thing about her children, I'm getting sidetracked here. In some instances, according to some mythographers, she takes Erebus as her mate and births these children with him. But a lot of them, and Hesiod included, states she creates them herself, just the way she was created from chaos. I kind of like that idea. Like I said, I'm a little iffy on the whole idea of Erebus not being a place, being a deity instead. This kind of makes Nyx even cooler, that she generates these offspring. And her offspring, some of them are pretty well-known gods, but they're real, super, I'm going to say basic concepts. No, that's not the right term. Basic makes it sound like they're core concepts. Among her children, we already talked about Nemesis, the goddess of retribution and revenge. If you missed that, check it out. It's on my YouTube channel, George Olympians. That was Monday. We spent a whole time talking about her. She's pretty awesome. But then there's Hypnos. And we know Hypnos, he hasn't appeared again. Hypnos was the god of sleep. He literally was the concept of sleep. He has an image in art that's very similar to Hermes. He has wings that grow out of his hair. The difference, Hermes normally is wearing a hat or a helmet or something when he has his wings. It's something he can take off. Hypnos, it seems to be like the front of his hair actually grows into wings. It's weird look. Then there's Thanatos, which is awfully similar to a certain supervillain we could mention, Thanos, which is on purpose. Thanos is very much... Thanatos was just death. The concept of death. Not like the god of the dead, like Hades or anything like that. He's just death. Kind of like, I guess, the Grim Reaper or something. So, that's 2 super major concepts. Sleep and death are the children of Nyx. And there's a little bit of you could see how sleep isn't normally considered a dark thing, but it's something you do to kind of it's like the nighttime kind of almost imposes that on you. And there is a certain amount of scaredness, frighteningness in the concept of sleep. There's a little bit of a darkness, forgive the pun, about those two, right? Eris, I already mentioned, she's the goddess of causing trouble. She's another child of Nyx. Not quite on the same, towering level of Hypnos and Thanatos, but still, her whole thing is she causes trouble, right? She's, you can see a certain theme here. These are all things that are maybe, except for sleep. I know I crave sleep a lot, but I feel like the way the Greeks thought of sleep, it was very different. It was a chance that you wouldn't wake up from it. You didn't know what happened. You weren't in control. So Hypnos was he wasn't like the Sandman bringing you candy-colored dreams. And there is this weird overlap again with the Olympians, because there's Hypnos, he's sleep, but Hermes was the god who brought you your dreams. Although in some instances there's a god, I think his name is Somnia, who actually is dreams, again, a child of Nyx. I'm pointing at this like there's a picture there, there's not yet. So huh? And then, like, and then with Thanatos, the god of death, like, there's also Hades. So it feels like the Olympians are kind of almost like there's these super primordial, like, core god concepts. And the Olympians are, like, the little bit more friendly version that kind of gets between, like, hey, man, we know how to relate to these people. Let's get between them. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit here. So, here's another distinction of Nyx. Okay, actually, before I get into this, I just want to talk about one thing. Nyx is maybe super duper important depending on which version of Greek myths you understand. Now, we all here listening are pretty close. We pretty much follow the Greek myths as we know them, like the standard versions, right? Now, there is it's not as well known. There's a different branch of Greek myth, Greek belief, Greek religion that was called the Orphic beliefs. I've made mention to them here and there. Specifically, there's some interesting in the Dionysus. Wait, I didn't do a Dionysus episode. I mentioned Zagreus somewhere. That's a whole thing. I'm gonna do a Dionysus episode. My goodness. There's this whole other belief where, like, there's this whole other version of the way the cosmogony started, the whole birth of the gods. And in this version, Gaia is not the first god. Heck, chaos isn't the first god. The first god is this guy, well, guy/girl. He's both. She's both. They're both. Called Phanes. Phanes is also known as Protogonai, which means firstborn. Was hatched from a giant egg. Phanes was the first ruler of the cosmos. Then Phanes creates some other deities that creates, well, Chaos, who we all know, normally as not even the first god, the first entity, but in this thing, Chaos is the first god. Simultaneously creates Nyx, creates Erebus, and creates Tartarus. And this is all before Gaia. There's still no Gaia here. So in this version, Nyx predates the actual Earth. Then, Phanes hands the staff of leadership, so to speak, over to Nyx. Nyx, she's the second king of the gods. Then, she eventually gives it, then Mother Earth and other things come. She hands it off to her child, Uranos. This is a whole different version. Like, wait, Uranos is the child of Nyx? Yeah, the Orphics believe that. And then it goes from the version we know, Kronos, blah, blah, blah. Where does that first egg come? The Phanes comes. That Phanes. Oh, I can't say. I want to say Thanos every time. Phanes is born from. Well, it's this kind of weird story where first, before everything, there was like water and mud and this earth, and not earth like Mother Earth, like dirt, and they combined mud, and it became like this weird like lion creature named Heracles, and that gave birth to the egg. And why is it called Heracles if Hera's not going to be born for thousands of years yet? Look. Orphic mythology is weird. It's why you don't normally see it in books, because it's really hard to reconcile with everything. Why did I even go down this thing? Let's stop talking about Orphic. Let's go back and talk to what we know about Nyx, and then we're going to draw Nyx. So we know, I think it's in Homer, I think it's in the Iliad, they mention specifically that she makes her realm at the edges of the earth, where darkness and light mix together. And they describe, she's actually got some really interesting distinction. She's out and out called an evil god. We almost never see that. People always write to me asking, like, who's the most evil god? Like they're like, is it Ares or something? Like, no, Ares isn't evil. He's got some major personality defects, but he's definitely not an evil god. I don't think there is an evil Olympian. I think they all do evil things occasionally, and they all do good things, and they're just like people. She's out and out stated as evil. Her children are out and out stated as being awful. Which doesn't mean they're evil, but shows you that people didn't trust Thanatos, people didn't trust Hypnos, they didn't trust the other ones. And they all kind of lived together at the end of the earth. I looked for physical descriptions of her. For the most part, she is spoken of like she is night herself, but I did find a couple things. I was pretty happy. They describe that she wears blue-black embroidery. Okay, that's not that hard to figure out. The night sky is blue-black, so okay, we got that part. I found some later antiquity mentions where they kind of mention she has wings, which makes some sense to me because Nemesis has wings, Hypnos has wings. It seems to be a familial trait that a lot of these gods have wings. I think even Thanatos has wings. I should do one on Thanatos. And then finally, I saw the word vapor described with her. So I feel like she's kind of like a misty figure. Now, I'm going to start off drawing small. I want to go crazy here. One of the things, when I designed Nemesis, We worked backwards. We did the daughter before we did the mother. I decided she would have just black eyes, not a sparkle in them, like pools of eyes. And I think that's a trait I want to carry over into Nyx. If I really was going to draw Nyx, like I said, I would just color this black, but that would be so boring. So we're going to give her, like, I assume as an all-powerful primordial god, she can generate any form she wants. This is her chosen form. There's her nose. She's going to cast some strong shadows, which is interesting because there's no real light source. But we have to do something to make her show a little bit of light. Something I feel pretty strongly. I don't know why. She's not going to be bald, but I want her to have a big forehead. Like I said, I'm not sure why. Because I think it's just going to look kind of creepy for what I'm going to do. These are the fattest markers I could find. The smell of these is truly noxious. They're probably going to knock me out. I do want to just kind of make her hair like just vaporous. Because that was like such an evocative term for me. Like the idea that like darkness, as we understand it, as inhabitants of the 21st century, is not an object. It's actually it's the absence of light. But it seems, especially when you're in a place where there's no light, it certainly seems to be something palpable. It seems to be something you can be lost in, something you can't find your way out of. And the idea of it being like a vapor that kind of fills in the cracks and spreads over the world is a very evocative one. Am I killing this marker already? Good thing I have more than one. Fat marker number 2, don't let me down. Yeah. So I want it to be like her hair has like tendrils of just smoky blackness snaking out across everywhere. So she's at the end of the world, near where Atlas is actually holding everything up. But then you got to figure every night when Helios retreats across the sky, and Selene starts her trek. She's the moon. She's not the night. Something happens, right? It's Helios is gone. That light is gone. That's when Nyx comes out. And it said, like the descriptions I shared with her, I feel like she was someone the Greeks were like pretty wary of. Which makes sense. You know, nighttime, it's a scary time. I'm a full-grown adult, and there's still, every once in a while, I'll be like, you know, I think I'm going to turn some lights because it's a little spooky in here. Like, it's scary. We evolved to be creatures we have very good color vision. We can see very well in the daytime. We're not good at night. We just don't. So, like, we tend to sleep at night. We tend to, like, curl up in spaces. Night's when we're most vulnerable. Now, here's another thing. I figure, like, right now it looks like she's black and white. I don't think she would be white. I feel like I'm going to go with that. So this is black. But, like, if I were to be drawing this in a book, this would be flat black. Just the purest black, not a reflective moment on it. But I did find that description in 2 different places of blue-black. One was like it described her as having a headband of blue-black, which is like, I'm not giving her a headband, it's weird. Looks like it's the 80s. And the other thing is blue-black, like embroidery. So I want her skin to be like a dark, dark blue. And I think her skin would actually catch some pretty intense shadows. Just imagine that, like, I really am glad I gave her the big forehead. It gives her just a creepy experience. Like, imagine, like, you're just seeing this mist, and suddenly, like, this head just breaches through it, and she's like, I'm Nyx, and you're like, oh, my pants are wet. Let's give her some embroideries. Despite the fact it said blue-black embroideries, this is going to be mostly black. I guess because I realized as I was saying that, I changed gears. I felt a little bad because I always say if I find a written version of the text that's something's written, I have to use it. I'm going to make it a little bit blue. So, like, I'm giving her a little bit of highlights on there. But I don't think we'd see really any sense of her figure Let's just pretend this is all black because already the fumes are getting to me. So that's kind of like my first take at Nyx. Now, a lot of times I feel like I have to redesign characters many times to get it just right? I'm feeling pretty happy about this. But there is one thing I didn't put in here. I mentioned in late antiquity, at least, she's mentioned... Oh, look, it actually bled through. Can you see that? Because the reason so much marker, that's just killing me. It mentioned in late antiquity that she had wings. So I have this idea of how I'm going to demonstrate these wings. Here's the end of the earth. Just going to draw a horizon. Helios, let's just say he's just dipped his chariot into the sea. He's hopping into the boat that Hephaestus made him that carries him back across. And then there's just this kind of low vapor of darkness kind of hovering on the edge of the world. And if you guess that's Nyx, you're correct. She's incomparably vast. We can't understand. I mean, we're literally looking at this is only a narrow portion. This is the horizon of the entire world. She's still like this enormous figure just kind of coming up over the edge. Let's give her that creepy face, the black eyes, the nose. Let's make her mouth open because that's just more scary. Just imagine that, like you're outside, you look up the horizon, like, oh, look, a giant, horrible death goddess is coming towards me. Now the wings. Now this is what I could think could be cool. So she's already this huge vaporous figure. So what if her wings kind of are like these skeletal structures that kind of just whoosh, like reach out of this black mass and carry these tendrils of it, and then like just suddenly like these wings just stretch over the entire globe, and then it's nightfall. Like, that's kind of a cool idea, right? I'm not going to have a chance to draw that as well as I picture in my mind. But we decided when we were talking about her daughter, Nemesis, to give her bat wings. I'm going to give these kind of like one better. These are kind of like bat wings, kind of like dragon wings, which I guess are kind of like bat wings, maybe like pterodactyls. Just the matter that makes up her being, the blue-black embroidery, the vapor, so to speak, it's just kind of clinging on in patches, and it's always swirling. I actually like this coming out looking kind of smoky, right? And these wings would just keep expanding and stretching over you until it was night. And I guess, honestly, now I'm thinking about it, they're probably a little diaphanous because we can still, even when it's night, we still see the night sky. We still see those stars of Uranus. So once she casts it over, maybe she becomes a little bit more see-through. Maybe she's a little bit translucent. I don't know. Maybe night, as the ancient Greeks saw it, was more of a frame of mind. And then, from within that, we know are her awful children. We know that there's Thanatos, not Thanos. Gosh, I really want to talk about Thanos today. And Hypnos and all the others just kind of spread out of this thing and over the entire globe. I keep feeling like I need to fill in more black. Needs to be more. Okay. So there. I think I did a pretty good version of doing Nyx. I don't know. Okay, someone wrote, okay, you just made her my favorite goddess. Yeah, she's kind of awesome, and, I think it becomes very, like, a lot of times when people write modern fanfic about the gods, it's always very tempting to go back to the Titans as being the big bads. But, like, she really makes a lot of sense, where she's, like, from a divergent realm, like line of deities. Like, they're, like, kind of like the cousins the Olympians don't really talk about. Like, all these other gods and goddesses, like, this whole family, and she kind of does it herself, and she's like, I don't need any man to help me, or if you want to put Erebus in there, you could, but, like, whatever, Erebus. And, like, she's just this kind of spooky night goddess, and she has all these kids that have all these kind of, like, a lot of powers that overlap with the Olympians, but they're definitely not as friendly as the Olympians, which when you think of how some of the Olympians are not friendly at all, that's saying something. So I'm pretty happy with this. Also, you can't supposed to know, the fumes coming off this thing, my throat's getting sore. It's so smelly. So I'm going to move this aside a little bit. Woof. Oh, okay. This is the time when I normally do. Pardon me. This is the time when I normally take some Q&A. So I don't know if anybody's had any chance to ask any questions yet. I'm going to take a drink of water because Nyx is choking me with her blue-black vapors. My mother writes, Nyx Knox, who's there? Hi, Mom. She probably didn't mean to do this. Nox is what the Romans called her. So Mom just lucked into, Greeks called her Nyx, Romans called her Nox. Nyx Knox, who's there? Nick Knock. Nick Knock Potty Walk? No, it doesn't work. Let's see what we have. Do you think her favorite holiday is Halloween? Oh, here's the thing, man. All right, Halloween is definitely like a later holiday, right? Like that's, that's in response to All Saints Day. That's Saints, that's Catholic era. You got to get way beyond that. She actually did have a couple of holidays back in the day, including there was a big festival. Pardon me, goodness, she's definitely killing me. There was a festival in Rome where she was celebrated as Nox. And I think there was like one festival in Greece. She wasn't a goddess you made a huge deal out of. Again, I think this falls into the realm of like, we don't want a super amount of attention from you, but you're scary and terrifying. I mean, look at you. We don't want you to be mad at us. So there were festivals to her. I imagine she would look at Halloween as just like, some of those people aren't scary enough. For her, I think her favorite holiday would be like all light disappears and you just hear shrieking in the darkness all around you. That seems to me like the sort of holiday Nyx could get behind. Who from the Olympians would be Nyx's allies? I am super tempted to say nobody. I feel like I'm really getting into this idea of Nyx as a potential big bad. And I don't really, my whole thing with Olympians is I write the stories. I try to tell the original stories and try not to put spins that dramatic on it, like where like she would be, but like the idea that she's this primordial goddess who doesn't have time for these human trappings. And I feel like she would look at the Olympians wearing their ridiculous human forms and like their ridiculous preoccupations with what these mortals do. And she's like, why? She's something beyond that. She is just night. She is the absence of all light. I think she'd especially hate Apollo, for various reasons. But I don't think she would have really any allies among them. Possibly, depending on how much of a literal reincarnation you might find Aphrodite to be of her sibling Eros, there might be something there. There's even a bit I didn't mention this, I should have, it's got to be the Iliad, because there is a bit where Hypnos, her son, is actually relating a story where it's a weird little kind of side transgression where like Zeus is really, like Hypnos makes Zeus go to sleep and Zeus is super duper angry about it, but he is afraid to seek retribution because he doesn't want to anger Nyx. So that speaks to me that there's like a tension there. And I like that idea. So I don't think anyone would. I'm even going to rescind my Aphrodite idea. That was just thrown out. Like, Aphrodite betrayed her by having the human form. Can you do a flushed out version of her? Unless, of course, she'll kill you. Yeah, I mean, flushed out, I mean like a full body. Here's the thing. I feel like the face is probably as much as she would get. Like, the idea of Nyx creating feet seems funny to me. Like, why? She has wings. She's just she's a vapor. I think she could generate body portions as she needs. Like, I can just imagine how scary it'd be. Let's go back to this one that's making me cough with the fumes. You're at the edge of the earth. Say oh my gosh, you're Atlas, right? Like, you're there every night. This is his ongoing terror. And every night this thing comes up over the horizon, right past the edge of where you are. And, like, she maybe just makes, like, a hand of, like, half vapor, half form, come over and just, like, tickle your chin for a second. Like, please, I'm holding up the entire cosmos. And then she spreads out over the land. And then people start having nightmares and all kinds of stuff happens. Are there any mythology sources you don't like? That's a really great question. There's definitely some authors who, when I see their name, I'm more likely to give them a pass if I'm reading something. there's like one guy who I really want to read, and like it's kind of hard to find. There's this guy Nonus. He wrote it's the longest epic poem there is. It's the Dionysiaca. It's something like 11 books. Like books. It's like the craziest thing. I've tried reading it. It's super long. I don't know if I dislike him, but I've just decided in general just to not use him as a source because I can't get through it. So, I'm going to keep that in mind. Like, as I go through, I'm going to, like, take a look at my bookshelf, take a look at some of the sites I go to, and see, like, if there's anybody who I was just really like, ugh. I know there's some retellings I really don't care for, but I don't want to, like, kind of put anybody on blast. All right, I'll give you a big hint. If you were writing a book called Greek mythology, and you end up using Roman names instead, I immediately don't like you. It's stupid, I know, but, like, come on. You had one job, just do it. There's a very well-known author out there who does just that a lot, and it drives me crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Does she come out in an eclipse? Now, this is pure speculation on my part, because I actually couldn't find anything that was a specific reference to that, but that would make a lot of sense if the ancient Greeks would see an eclipse. And from a mythological point of view, I mean, they were super duper smart. They knew a lot of stuff. They knew what eclipses were. They could figure that out. They knew the Earth was round. That's not, they'd figured this stuff out. But I could picture, like, from a mythological standpoint, them happening and be like, oh my gosh, Nyx has killed Selene. Or something, or captured her. Like, that must have been, or whoever, I guess. I mean, I'm thinking lunar eclipse or something. Nyx has killed Helios or something. I don't know, that's a cool idea. I love this. Sometimes you guys have such great ideas. I'm like, man, somebody should write this thing. Which Greek gods had the most festivals to honor them? Wow, that's interesting, because I think that changes a lot from region to region. So, you would think, like, Zeus as the big guy would have the most to honor him, but I actually feel like you would tip your hat to him every time. There's certain gods and goddesses that wouldn't necessarily have a festival named after them, but Zeus, for instance, doesn't seem to have a lot of individual festivals. There's the big one that the Olympics were held in honor, so he's got that, and he's got a few other things here and there, like in Dodona and other places. But for the most part, I think as the big guy, you didn't have festivals for him. And then, like, certain areas, like in Athens, there's probably a lot more festivals for Athena than, say, there would be in, like, Sparta. I feel like Dionysus had an awful lot for various reasons, because people are like, Dionysus festivals are fun. Everybody's partying and, like, hey, this weird grape juice he has makes me feel really awful the next morning, but for a moment I feel pretty good. He's up there. There's definitely a lot of Dionysian. I feel like there's a lot of festivals, especially centered around, like, young men and growing up, about Apollo, because that was one of the things he was in charge of. And Artemis seems to have had quite a few festivals along the same lines. I wish I had a more conclusive thing for that. I feel pretty confident saying that I would put my money on Dionysus having the most, just because it would be like, boy, we have nothing planned this weekend. Hey, let's do a Bacchanalia. Woo, everybody. Maybe her children would be her allies. Oh, I think almost definitely. I don't know if that question's in reference to this. I assume so. Somebody wrote, maybe her children be allies. I mean, that one source I mentioned specifically mentions her children live with her children's. So yeah, I think that's exactly what would happen. I think, like, I'm thinking this is a cool idea, man. Like, the idea that, like, this whole, like, dark family, like, oh, we don't talk to them. They're literally the black sheep of the family. They're, like, scary and terrifying. Goddess of vengeance, goddess of, god of death, goddess of night, god of sleep. Maybe not as bad as the others, but, I mean, it gives you bad nightmares. Let's see. No chariot. There is actually, I did find a reference in late antiquity of her having a chariot, but, it wasn't a good chariot. It wasn't like the Griffins or something. Let's see what else we got. Who is the sunset and the sunrise? The sunrise is Eros. No, not Eros. Oh no, Eos! I'm like, I can picture in my head. Eos is like the rosy-fingered dawn. Eos is a child of the Titans, a sibling to both the sun and Helios and the moon, Selene. Sunset, strangely, I don't feel like there is a sunset. I could be wrong about this. This might just be a gap in my knowledge. But I think the sunset with the sky turning red, that was viewed as Helios dipping into the ocean, his flames going out and such. So I don't think they actually personified the sunset. That being said, I'm sure someone can find a source where there is an actual sunset. But the morning dawn, that's definitely Eos. She was her own thing. So man, that's actually an interesting idea, right? So Nyx is this scary blackness that envelops the night. Kind of see-through because you can still see the stars. We don't know about that. And then Eos comes and she's kind of like, oh, get him out, shoo out. I don't know where you're going. You can't stay here. Like, maybe Eos is super duper powerful. Eos has appeared multiple times in my books. I don't think she hasn't a speaking line. I don't think there's a myth where she has a speaking line, maybe. That made no sense, but you know what I'm saying. Let's see what else we give. Why didn't you give Zeus dark hair when the ancient sources describes him that way? Oh, wow. I would, if there's actually an ancient source that describes him that way, please send it to me at GeorgiaConnorBooks@gmail.com. Here is a true story about Zeus that never made it into the books. I talk about this a little bit in the Zeus book. I'll draw Zeus really quickly as I'm doing this. I gave Zeus, when you first meet Zeus in book 1, he has kind of like light brown hair. The origins of the god Zeus, where he was first worshipped, was in the Caucasus Mountains, the god that would become Zeus. So I felt pretty strongly about giving him like a Caucasian appearance. So he's got like, kind of relatively light coloration. He's got the beard, the brown hair. Then when he travels to the underworld and encounters the Cyclopes and gets his lightning power, I had his hair turn shock white. Now, some of that was to show this trauma of the Cyclopes launching their lightning into Zeus. Some of it was because of his role as king of the sky. And so I've talked about this in other episodes, but it's worth repeating. His eyes are always drawn the same blue as the color of the sky. His hair is white to signify clouds. And then his mustache is a lightning bolt. When I originally did this design, this is the worst drawing of Zeus I've ever done. The early sketches, his hair was going to turn black when he used his powers. So the idea was like he would have like his hair white when he was normal, like he was just a normal cloud in a blue sky. And then when he was like angry and like was using his lightning and his thunder, his hair would turn black like a storm cloud. I still like that idea. Like, I think it's kind of cool. Like, his hair is a literal cloud. I dropped it. There's a couple reasons I dropped it. I was having a hard time pulling off the art to make it clear that was what was happening. I wish I knew now what I could. I'm a better artist now than I was when I was working on Zeus. Also, Zeus doesn't really get his lightning powers till the very end of it, and I kind of wanted to establish the white hair, and the plan was like in Athena, he was going to then have his hair turn black, and the way when he gets angry, and it just never materialized. But I wish it did. But please, I would love to read the source of him having dark hair, because that actually makes a lot of sense to me, and I would really love to see that. Oh, in the Iliad it says. Okay, cool. I'm gonna have to search through the Iliad and find that. If you happen to know the book, let me know. Eros would be great to draw because you could use Homer's epithets like golden-sandaled and rosy-fingered. Oh, Eos. Yeah, my Eos, who I have drawn, I've never drawn her feet because she's always just this kind of thing wafting over the horizon. But she does have fingers, and they do have a touch of pink to them for that exact reason. Are there stories where Aphrodite and Dionysus are friends? This is from Eleanor. Oh, Eleanor. Hey, Eleanor. Eleanor did one of the drawings we saw up front. I can't think of any stories with their friends, like hanging around, like playing Xbox or something. Xbox, is that a thing? I'm a PlayStation guy. Also a Nintendo guy. I'm not an Xbox guy. There are some instances of certain stories where they are lovers, where they have had children together. So if you count that as friends, then yeah, in some sources they are. That's a funny couple, honestly, if you try to picture the two of them, like Aphrodite and Dionysus. Dionysus in almost anybody is kind of funny, I think. Like, he's just... I'm really enjoying working the Dionysus book. Dionysus is he's a pretty cool character. he's like that whole idea. I talk a lot about how there's like different generations of gods and they each change each time. He's definitely the next generation. Like he's different from the other Olympians because he's born of a mortal. He's got his dad is Zeus, but his mom is a mortal woman. So he's got a much more tangible connection to the human experience than the other gods do, who at best are wearing borrowed forms of humanity. Let's see what else we got. Can you draw him with dark, stormy hair? You know what? I'm going to try. And while I'm drawing that, let's just see how he looks with dark, stormy hair. See if I can rescue this drawing. Oh, then he would have a beard too. Somebody asked, do any gods have a chariot pulled by Pegasus? No. Pegasus, and I'm glad you said Pegasus and not Pegasi or Pegasuses or however you want to make that enumerative. Because Pegasus is one being in the myths. Pegasus is actually the son of Poseidon and Medusa. Say, what? I know, it's weird. I talk about that on the Medusa episode and maybe on the Poseidon episode too. You can see those up on George Olympians. But he's singular. And the only person who I can actually think of that actually in myth, not the Disney cartoon, not Clash of the Titans, that rode Pegasus was the mortal hero Bellerophon. And Bellerophon, actually, he rides that up to Mount Olympus. He challenges the gods himself. He's like, hey, look at me. I'm on a flying horse. Come on, let me in. And they're like, oh no. And Zeus's hair goes suddenly dark. And his eyes flash bright white. And then he blows up Bellerophon with a lightning bolt. He does not hurt Pegasus, though, thank goodness. So, and then let's just do like some electricity arcing off him, which would have been the idea. That's why I left these highlights. Like his highlights would have been lit up by that. So like, like when you see a storm cloud and like there's a lightning burst inside and it lights up that thing. So, I don't know. He kind of looks like me now. Wait, let's see. Yeah, so maybe that's the reason I did give him dark hair. It's like already all my characters kind of look like me. They're just like better looking versions of me. So like that would have been a little bit too obvious. Yep, somebody just was referring. I think the guy that first rode Pegasus got blown up by Zeus for annoying the gods. He did indeed. Bellerophon has a bad end, but that's why you don't challenge the gods. Seeing your process creating a character made me wonder how much you planned out the full Olympian series before you started creating. Any major changes as the series progressed? Yeah, I did a lot of planning for this. I don't even know how many sketchbooks. I've shown my sketchbook on here before. I left it out of sight, so I won't show it again today, and there's nothing really interesting in it. I filled up over hundreds of sketchbooks like that. I've been working on Olympians. It's been published for about 10 years, but I've been working on it for a lot longer than that. A lot of work went into it. And when I first started the series, I made a giant spreadsheet document that was a plan for all 12 books. And it was literally in Excel, which is like the only time I ever use Excel. I don't know how to really barely use it. I taught it to use this thing. It had the books, their titles, the potential order, what I thought would be the order, the different myths that would be covered in each one, the ideas I wanted to express, and then overlap. Like if stories like threaded from one to another, like for instance, you see the Gigantomachy, the Battle of the Giants, in several books. Or like the way a myth you might see from one end in one story and another in the other. I had all this stuff. For the most part, it's actually remarkably close to that. There's been a lot of changes I can think of. Some of the order of the books switched. I know. I think I was never sure what order Artemis and Apollo would be in. For instance, I actually really tried to make Hades the Demeter book at first, and just marketing reasons we went with Hades instead. And there was a lot of stories that got cut due to space. Sometimes my eyes were bigger than my stomach for what I could put in there. So speaking of Orpheus, Hades, I was originally going to have Orpheus and Eurydice in that story, and that got cut. In Aphrodite, I was going to have Eros and Psyche, and that got cut. I also wanted at one point, I've talked about after I finish Olympians, I want to be doing like a series after this as a follow-up, doing stories that don't feature the Olympians quite so strongly, but are still Greek mythology. And at one point, around like book 4 or 5, I think, I actually pitched that as something to go in between. Like I wanted to do that concurrently with Olympians, and just didn't seem like a good idea to do that. So there was a change from that, but that was a later edition. For the most part, honestly, it's been pretty close. here's one big difference. You haven't seen it yet. I always had one ending in mind for Dionysus, and the ending didn't work. As I worked on it, I finished the script up. I'm like, no, this original ending I had is just, it's too forced. And it's a little addendum. I might actually do it as a free comic on my website, georgeoconnorbooks.com, when the book comes out. But for now, it's not in the book. So, one last question that I can answer super quickly, because we're almost at an hour and this thing cuts off automatically an hour. Why is the eye coming out of Argus's beard so deeply disturbing to me? Because it's disgusting. It's like growing out of the side of his jaw. Like right where I have this like patch on my beard, he has like an eye there, and it's covered with all these black bristly hairs. Imagine when like it closes and you don't really see it, and there's like an eyeball there. It's like, I mean, it's disgusting. Argus is gross. I mean, sorry, Argus, you seem like you're a pretty nice guy. I have my own pet theory I've talked about in multiple episodes now about how I'm pretty sure you and Hera had a thing on the side. And I respect that because, like, way to go. But, dude, the eyes all over. Like, he must have some on the bottom of his feet. That's disgusting. Or in his armpit. I mean, come on. So anyway, that's, I guess, the end of this. So if you have any pictures of your own version of Nyx or stormy-haired Zeus or anything, send it to me. Oh, let's do it. Send it to me at georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. If you want to see other episodes I missed, and please, if somehow you saved the Minotaur episode on Friday, which my phone screwed up and didn't save, send it to me at George O'Connor Books, but then you can check out my past episodes at my YouTube channel. And looks like we got some questions I didn't get to answer. I'm sorry about that. Join me here Friday. We're going to be concluding the series of George Designs Goddesses on the Fly with the Queen of the Seas, the Bride of Poseidon, Amphitrite, who I don't think, but I'm not 100% sure, has ever appeared in Olympians. She might be in one panel. But you know what? We're going to design the heck out of her because she is major and super important, and it's a crime she hasn't appeared yet. So everybody, thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you all had a great day, and I'll talk to you all soon. All right. Bye-bye.